Hello, my most amazing artists. Today you're going to be making your clay cakes, which will then go into the kiln and turn into ceramic. You're going to be making them out of a slab of clay. A slab of clay is a flat piece of clay that has been cut from a block. It doesn't have any air bubbles in it. It's totally ready to work. We don't want to crush it up and squish it into a ball because it's already ready to cut pieces out of these tracers. You're going to be cutting 2 triangles for a top and a bottom of your cake box, and you're also going to be cutting 2 rectangles for the sides of the box, as well as 1 square for the back of the box to connect all of the pieces together. So you're going to be making a triangle box with a triangle lid on the top as a slice of cake or pie or whatever you decided to make. So today I'm going to be starting out by writing my name on my tray on the little piece of paper that's on there. It might be wax paper, write your name on it. Then you want to get your slab to be pinky thin. No thicker than your pinky, or it's going to be too heavy and too thick, but also no thinner than your pinky. If you press or roll it out too much and it gets really, really thin, it's not going to be sturdy enough to stand up as walls of the clay. So you want it to be about pinky sized. If it's any thinner, it's going to fall apart, it might break. So I'm going to press this out because I did not have a roller when I made this video. If you are able to use a roller, you probably have one to share with your table. You can use that to roll out the slab a little bit so that it can fit all of your tracers on it. Just make sure you don't go roller happy and roll it out too thin. You want it to be the size of your pinky. I had to use a popsicle stick to roll mine out or try to press it out and get it nice and smooth because I had to use my fingers to press it out and make it a little bit bigger. After I roll or press it out, I want to make sure that I can fit all of my pieces onto one slab. It's going to take some rearranging like a puzzle to make sure I can fit all of these because remember, it's not just 3 pieces. I need 2 triangles, 2 rectangles, and 1 square. So I'm going to start out by sketching it with my little pointer stick right there. That way I can lightly draw into the clay, just like drawing with a pencil. I'm not carving through it, I'm not cutting it, I'm just trying to sketch it out to see where I can fit these shapes and how they're going to fit best. So I'm going to go ahead and play around with this to see which one works best. If it doesn't work out, I can smear it together and just make it again nice and smooth so I can start over and figure out where is the best way to arrange these pieces. The one I'm missing is a square, which is no big deal because I can make my clay into a slab, my extra to make that square after. Now I'm going to cut my pieces using that popsicle stick as my clay knife and cutting it. Now if you do happen to have a clay knife that looks like this, you can use that instead, but a popsicle stick works the same exact way if that's what you have on your tray. So I'm just using my cutting tool to slice through the clay, holding it tall like a soldier, not slanted like a pencil, because that's going to allow me to cut through the clay nice and evenly. So holding it tall when I cut that clay, peeling off the extra clay and rolling it up into a ball. Any extra clay that you have, you could use, say, for another piece that you might need, or you could also use it for your decorations. So definitely save all that extra clay, put it into a ball somewhere on your tray so you can use it later. You do not want to put any extra clay in your pockets because not only would that be stealing from the art room, but it also would be a joke on you because it does turn into dirt after it gets too dry. So when this clay dries out, it just turns to dirt, crumples up, turns into dust. It's not very fun to clean out of your pockets, and you do need a kiln to make anything to keep forever for this clay to work. So I go ahead and press that into a clay slab to make my square. And this was a little bit different because I had to do this at home when I was recording this video. So I did not have an extra slab of clay like you might have to cut that extra piece. I was able to be resourceful and figure it out. Now I've got my 2 rectangles, a square, and 2 triangles, just like my tracers say that I need. So after you have all of your pieces cut and ready to go, now you're going to see how I'm going to build this. So see how the 2 rectangles are going to go on the sides, the square on the back, and the triangle on the bottom. That's how I'm going to have to start with the bottom of my box. So I'm going to start with 1 triangle and then get my rectangle to put on the sides. Now if I were to just stick it all together like this, yes, it does appear to stick. Look, I just built my box, boom. But no, unfortunately it does not work like that because even if the clay sticks together now because it is squishy, it's not going to stick forever. When it dries, those walls are going to fall right down. They're just going to fall off. So you have to do something called scratch and attach. It's also called scoring and slipping because in the cup you have something called slip. It's just wet clay that kind of has turned into like a mud. And this is called scoring, when you etch into the clay, making like little X's with my carving tool. And that's going to make a clay Velcro. By making texture on both sides of what I'm attaching, it's going to make it easier for it to stick together with that slip or clay glue in the cup. So I dip my toothbrush into the water or clay glue and then rub it together. And now I'm going to do something called smoothing and smushing. So I score, slip, scratch, attach, and smush and smooth, because now I need to really make sure that they're attached. So any seams in the clay where I can see that line where it attached, I want to take my thumb and move that clay over so it smooths it out. So on any seam on the inside and the outside, I need to smooth it together to make sure it's really attached. If I can wiggle it and it starts to fall off, it's definitely going to fall off when the clay is dry. Make sure that you are keeping the form of the clay box. You could do that by using your popsicle stick or your clay knife to kind of smooth things out, make sure they're sturdy and still standing up tall and strong. So now that I have one wall and the bottom of my box, you could either attach the rectangle on the side as the other wall, or you could attach the back. I'm going to start out with the square in the back. So now I have two areas that need to be scratched and attached. So I scratch or etch X's into the sides, make that L shape, use my toothbrush, dip it in the clay glue or the slip, scratch and attach. I also have to use my toothbrush and my etching tool to scratch and attach on the other piece. Velcro only works when both sides have texture. Think of this like a Velcro shoe. If you're trying to stick that Velcro shoe closure on, it has texture on both sides. It wouldn't work just sticking Velcro to plastic. It would fall right off. You have to have texture on both sides. Now I smooth and smush it together to really make sure it's attached. So scratch, attach, smooth, and smush. Now I'm smoothing it together. You can use water or that clay glue or slip to slide it and make sure that it's nice and smooth and stuck together. But if you add too much water, your box is just going to fall apart. So you want to make sure that anytime you're using water to smooth and smush, you're just dipping your fingertips into the water or the slip and just gliding it over top to get the cracks out of the clay. You do not want to add a bunch of water because it's just going to turn into mud and be very hard to work with. You want to have just the right amount. If you are playing with the clay a lot, it's going to get very dry and start to crack. And just like if you play with it too much, if you just let it sit there, it's also going to start to dry and crack. So you want to make sure that you're working pretty efficiently, using your time wisely, but also not adding too much water. So you just use a little bit anytime you see some cracks. And you could also wait to the end to smooth out cracks. It does not have to be perfect right away. Just get everything built and attached, and later when you're done, you can take the time to smooth out anything that you don't like. So I'm doing that right now, trying to get my piece together because it looked like it was a little too short. Now I can fit it in. It looks like it'll fit if I scratch and attach the sides. So now I have more sides to do. I don't just have to do the L shape. I have to scratch and attach all the way around. So I have to etch around the border of this entire triangle. The only part I don't need to scratch and attach is the very top, because I'm not going to be attaching the top or the lid to the box. This is going to be two separate pieces so that you can store things inside of it. After I scratch and attach all of the sides, then I use my toothbrush, scratch, 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 make sure I'm getting that clay glue together, and now I can smooth and smush to make sure that it's really stuck together. This is the most important step now because it's my last wall of my box, so I need to make sure that every edge or seam where I just glued it together is really stuck. So I'm making sure that I smooth everything together, still keeping the form of the box and my triangle so it looks like a cake slice, but also checking that it's all really attached. Checking the bottom, checking the sides, smoothing down with my thumb to move any extra clay over top of those seams, smoothing the bottom there where you can still see the seam as well, but very carefully doing so and keeping it on my tray so that I always have somewhere to work. That way I don't have to clean up a giant mess at the end. Now I'm ready to make the clay top. Now that I have my box and everything smoothed and smushed, I can talk about making the lid. The lid, or the top of my cake or pie, is going to be made out of that last triangle that I have remaining. I'm going to try to make sure that it fits on there. If it got a little bit off when I cut it, that's okay. That tracer was just as a guide. It might not perfectly fit your box, but I can try to squeeze my box to fit a little bit better. I pulled off the very tip of that triangle to make sure that it was a little bit more rounded out and fit. And now I can go ahead and make my details. There's not much that you have to do on the lid structure-wise because it's just going to sit right on top. However, I do need to talk about adding frosting or maybe some crust or maybe those details that we had drawn with our oil pastel cakes. So if you know how to roll out a coil by rolling a clay snake, maybe like you've done with Play-Doh when you were little, if you know how to make a slab by making a clay pancake basically, and if you can make a sphere by rolling a ball, you can make anything to add on top of your pie or cake with clay. So right here I have a crust and I made a strawberry, or maybe that's icing, but I'm going to do that by taking 2 coils and twisting them together. I twist 2 coils together and then I'm going to make that as my crust. There's different ways that you can make a crust, but this was the easiest and fastest way for me. So I'm going to just pinch it to size so I can pinch off the extra there. If you do need extra clay because you run out, I do have more. Now I'm going to scratch and attach. So I'm going to go ahead and scratch in that texture to the top where I'm going to put the crust, scratch into what I am attaching, take my toothbrush with my clay glue or slip on it, and now I can attach it. So I really want to wiggle it on there, get it really attached like the clay Velcro, and then I can smooth and smush. However, when I'm smoothing and smushing this time, I don't want to get rid of that twisted texture that I made with my crust. So I'm only going to be smoothing anywhere that it's attaching to the top. So then I can take my finger and kind of smooth out any cracks so I can still see all of that awesome texture of the 2 coils twisted together, but it looks a little bit nicer and more edible. It's not edible yet. If you ate the clay, that would not be good. All right, now that I already have the crust, I can make a detail. So maybe I make a strawberry, maybe I make blueberries, maybe I make frosting or a dollop of whipped cream. Maybe I want to make a lemon, a lime, a cookie, whatever it is. You can make a character, a Minecraft character, an Among Us character that's sitting on top of your cake. Whatever it is that you can make, as long as you know how to make a sphere, which is that clay ball there, a slab, which is flattening it out to make a pancake, a coil like I made the crust, then you can make anything. I just made a sphere that I flattened to make into a slab. It's a circle shape because now I am going to smooth it out and turn this into my lime. I'm going to make a key lime pie, so I'm turning this into a lime. I'm going to make 2 slices of lime, but starting out by making 1 lime. So I'm going to etch in with my etching tool the outside of my lime, looking like it's a slice out of a lime, and then I'm going to go ahead and divide the sections, and then I can make those details of all the fruit inside. So I'm using both sides of my etching tool. One is going to create a lot bigger and softer of a line, and then the other one that has the point on it is going to create a line that's more detailed like a pencil. So if you want to make those details, use both sides. I cut it in half with my cutting tool, and now bam, I've got 2 limes, or they could be lemons or oranges, whatever they are. Now I'm going to have to scratch and attach them. I'm going to put both limes on, make them look really pretty, scratch and attach both sides, clay Velcro where I want to stick it, brush it with my toothbrush, there we go. But if I did not do that, it would just fall right off. So even if you spend time making the most awesome cake today, but you don't scratch and attach, everything's just gonna fall apart when it gets dry and goes into the kiln. So to make sure it doesn't break, really make sure you spend some time scratching and attaching today. I can't wait to see all of the awesome details that you come up with. It could be more creative than just adding fruit or candy on top of your cake. Now, these are really attached and my cake is pretty much done. I am going to say this looks like key lime pie. If you wanted to make a cake or a pie that has layers or filling, you could take the bottom of the cake when you're all done and you could carve details into the bottom. For me, I know that most of my flavor is going to come from the colors that I paint it with after it comes out of the kiln. So I'm just going to scratch some layers in here so that it looks like the texture of the filling of the key lime pie. So I'm just going to scratch a couple layers in here, and then I'm going to etch my name on the bottom of my lid and my class code, and then I'm going to do that also on the bottom of the box. If you don't have time today to do that, it's okay as long as you wrote your name on the paper on your tray. If you forgot to write your name on everything, it's going to be hard for me to know whose it is and carve your name in for you. I don't mind doing it for you later today after you leave if you run out of time, but you do at least have to have your name somewhere on your tray so that I can then carve your name in. If you'd rather do it though, you are more than welcome. You'll see that with this other one, it fell right off what I made because it wasn't scratched and attached. If you want to make frosting, it kind of looks like the poop emoji, I know, rolling a coil and swirling it into that little frosting dollop or whipped cream, scratching and attaching. If you notice your clay is getting really dry and starting to crack, all you need is a little water, smooth it on out, and it's looking much better. These are going to be white when they come out of the kiln after they dry and go in and get fired at 4,000 degrees, so don't worry about the color right now. You'll be able to add all the flavors with the paint later. All that's required today is that you take your slab, cut your pieces, and use your 2 triangles, your 2 rectangles, and your square to build your box, a triangular prism. And make sure that any details that you happen to add on top of that are really scratched and attached. I cannot wait to see what you come up with. When you are all done, you're going to leave everything on your tray. Your extra clay gets put into a ball on your tray. Leave it there. And you can put this on the top of your cake if you want to, but remember, you're not scratching and attaching or smushing and smoothing them together because you do want 2 separate pieces. If you just sit it on the top of it and don't attach it, it will dry okay. It won't stick together, so don't worry about that. When you're cleaning your hands today, we're not going to go right to the sink. You're going to use an art wipe to get most of the clay off, because if you were to wash your hands in the sink, then it would clog the drain with all that clay that's coming off all your hands. So instead, you're going to wipe it off with an art wipe as best as you can, and then when you take your bathroom break after art class, you can wash your hands. I'm just adding on a detail, maybe trying to do some dripping frosting effect there by making a coil. You can totally experiment with what you can add in your extra time. I do have extra clay, but try to use everything you have efficiently first. So I'm going to go ahead and try experimenting with this as you start thinking about what you want to do on your clay box today. I can't wait to see what you come up with, you creative artists. Have fun, and don't forget, the first step is with your slab, cutting those pieces out and then building it together. You're going to be clay artists or ceramicists today. Have fun.